When I was growing up, my most played game on my Game Boy Advance was Pokemon Emerald, and there was no second place contender that even came close. To this day, I still think this is my favorite Pokemon game for several reasons. For starters, I'm a sucker for 2D sprite artwork and RPGs, and I just love the way that Emerald looks, the music slaps, and it has some of the best endgame content of any Pokemon game with a battle frontier. But weirdly enough, one of the reasons I enjoyed Emerald so much was because of the glitches. For example, the cloning glitch. How this worked is you'd first need to unlock the battle frontier, and then head over to the battle tower. You start out by placing whichever Pokemon you wanted to clone into the PC, save the game, and then place them back into your party. Afterwards, you talk to the guide for the Link multi-battle rooms and progress through the dialogue until asked if you'd like to save. After selecting yes, there will be a long pause, and I believe during this, the game saves whichever Pokemon you have in your party, and then you're prompted if you'd like to save again. Then if you reset the game without saving again, upon reloading, you'll keep the Pokemon you had in your party, and also the one stored in the PC. The reason I like this glitch so much isn't just because I'm a dirty cheater that can't play games normally, which I mean, guilty as charged, but this meant I was able to trade Pokemon with all my friends without us having to lose anything. For this reason, so many memories are preserved on my childhood Pokemon Emerald cartridge, and just scrolling through my PC brings back so much nostalgia. Like this Poliwrath right here that I remember anxiously hovering over my sister's shoulder as she caught her first shiny Pokemon. Or how some of my friends would coordinate with each other's parents to drive them to the mall for special events, which is how I unlocked Mew, Lugia, and Jirachi. It seems I made sure to clone enough Jirachis for all the homies as well, but unfortunately I never got a hold of Deoxys. I took a lot of pride in the fact that I completed the entire Hoenn Pokédex, mostly illegitimately. You know, other than when I would rubber band the buttons on my Game Boy to repeatedly cycle up a cliff while my Pokemon were in the daycare center, but I'm hoping we can all look past that. Like I've said many times from a young age, I was always fascinated by glitches in my favorite video games, as it would extend the enjoyment I could get out of them. So many areas in these Pokemon games are just out of reach, and being able to essentially cast a magic spell to lift the curtains was so cool to me. As I got more involved with speedrunning, I eventually stumbled across Worcester, who happened to be speedrunning Pokemon Emerald, so I sat down and gave it a watch. Considering how glitchy the Generation 1 and 2 Pokemon games are, I had pretty high expectations for what an any percent speedrun of Emerald would look like. But as I continued watching, I started to realize this run really didn't use any glitches at all. He was pretty much just linearly playing through the game, taking down one gym at a time. It was still really cool to see the speedrun strategies for playing the game normally, but obviously, this wasn't what I came for. But just as I was about to stop watching and move on with my day, something interesting began happening. While poisoned, Worcester began swimming in the water near Rustboro, slowly taking his Swampert to 1 HP as he started collecting an entire army of Wingull. Afterwards, he deposited all the Wingull in the PC and used a Pomeg berry on Swampert to lower its HP EVs, but since it was at 1 HP already, this would put it at 0, meaning at this point, we just have a party of fainted Pokemon. This oversight would be patched in later releases, but for the Gen 3 games, we can abuse the hell out of this. Battling with a party of fainted Pokemon can make the game get really glitchy. In each battle, the game would send out a level 0 null Pokemon. After sending the Pokemon out, he would then go to his party and view the summary for Swampert, and then back out. Doing this would allow Worcester to scroll up in the menu past the 6th Pokemon slot and begin corrupting memory. By doing this, he could corrupt the game into unlocking the Evergrande Fly location early, but this would be at a 1 in 32 chance to happen with every corruption attempt. Furthermore, he would then move his Wingull army up in the PC box, also allowing him to corrupt these into bad eggs and also corrupting their moves. In the case of his world record run, he managed to corrupt a move that when selected, ended every battle instantly, allowing him to waltz through the Elite Four completely untouched. I knew after watching this speedrun that one day I would like to learn the run and give it a shot myself. Who knew it would take 8 years for me to decide to do so? But in 2023, the Emerald any percent speedrun is a lot more streamlined, and we have a much better idea of what exactly is going on, so in today's video, I'd like to give you guys a deep dive into what the speedrun route currently looks like and how it works. I hope you all enjoy. So like you'll be learning here shortly, it can be pretty expensive to play Pokemon Emerald on official hardware, but the only thing you'll need for today's video sponsor is your phone. Yeah, that's right, baby. That's because today's video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. By this point, you guys should probably know that Raid is one of the most played RPGs out there, with over 80 million downloads and counting. In Raid, you're able to collect hundreds of different champions, customize them and group them together to make the ultimate team to take on different bosses, and even other players as well. Right now, Raid is giving away a free legendary hero, the Monkey King, which is one of the most badass heroes I've ever seen, and he comes with a bunch of unique abilities, like being able to steal buffs from enemies before they're even able to attack, and also has a passive ability which revives him fully when he gets knocked out. If you sign up for Raid today, you'll get not one, but 2 epic champions, Lightsworn and Juliana, using my exclusive link. Plus, you'll also receive the 3rd legendary Sun Wukong with a promo code Monkey King. This legendary champion is an absolute game changer, setting you up for an unbeatable head start in Raid. And it's very rare that Raid gives heroes like these for free. Thanks again to Raid for sponsoring my video. Now let's get back to the speedrun. So I thought what would be interesting for today's video is to explain how I play this game on official hardware, because one of the most common questions I get on stream is, am I playing on emulator? And the answer is no. So of course, for starters, we are going to need our Pokemon Emerald cartridge. This is my childhood cartridge with my childhood save on it, so I could not give that up. So I did end up getting another cartridge off my friend to borrow, but I do believe these are pretty expensive right now. Yep, I'm looking over at DK Oldies and they're selling it for $340. So that's definitely what this is worth. So yeah, while you could just point a camera at your Game Boy Advance or SP at this point and call it a day, we could probably do a little bit better than that. So next up is I have my childhood GameCube, but unfortunately this GameCube isn't good enough. If we look at the back, we can see it only has AV analog output because apparently a lot of people were not using component with the GameCubes. So they just stopped putting them, like manufacturing them in to save money. So in my case, I had to go out and get a older GameCube version that did have the digital output on the back for that beautiful, beautiful 480p. And then as you could probably notice, I do have the Game Boy Player attachment on this GameCube so that we can play this on the big screen, baby. I am grateful that I grew up with this Game Boy Player right here and I didn't have to buy one on my own, but I guess they go for about 65 bucks. The thing that's really expensive about these things are the software, the disc that comes with this that makes it possible to play the Game Boy Advance games on here. I still have my disc floating around here somewhere, but instead of using that, I'm going to be cheating with an action replay disc. So yeah, with that disc and then this memory card SD card reader that I can put in here can load a whole different software that is much better than the stock software that comes on the disc for this thing right here. The base Game Boy Player software is just really bad. It has input delay, bad color, frame drops. It has that stupid like border you can't get rid of, and we're going to be loading this bad boy up with Game Boy Interface. With Game Boy Interface, not only am I going to get better video quality and input delay, but I also get an input display that I can show on screen, which is why so many people think it's emulator. I get that. But also instead of X and Y being both bound to select, one of these, and I can't remember which one, is now bound to start. So if I want to soft reset the game, I just put my thumb across this and the game's soft reset. Oh, and you guys probably noticed my controller. I'm using a Wii Classic Pro controller with a RAFnet adapter that outputs to a GameCube controller so I can plug it into this bad boy. Since we have to do so much precise movement in this game, I do not want to use the GameCube's D-pad or analog stick for movement, and I'd rather use this D-pad. But I think what is superior to this is just plugging in your Game Boy SP, using that as a controller. Also, another piece of hardware I'm going to be using is this wireless adapter, because although I am not going to be trading any Pokemon with any other players, the game still does check to see if you have it. So anytime you boot it up or go in and out of a Pokemon Center, there'll be a slight check to see if you have it. And if you have this plugged in, it skips that check because you have it. But the check does waste time, probably nearly 10 seconds throughout the speedrun. So pay to win. Oh, and then lastly, for getting that beautiful 480p gameplay up on the big screen, you're going to need a component cable, but official GameCube component cables are just extremely rare and really expensive. So it's much better that you go with one of these options. I got the Carby and the Eon MK2. Both of these run with the same GC video firmware, and I think the better bang for the buck is going to be the Carby, but this does have some pretty cool options as well. The long story short with these is they grab the digital output and output to HDMI, so then you can run it to your capture card, and boom, you have good looking video. So yeah, I hope that clears up any questions you guys had regarding hardware, because I get asked a lot. Let's go ahead and get into the speedrun now. So before we get into a speedrun of Pokemon Emerald, we'll first have to delete our current save file by pressing Up, B, Select on the start screen. Next we'll head into the game options and turn text speed to fast, battle scene to off to skip animations, battle style to set so we're not prompted to swap out Pokemon during battles, and button mode L equals A for more ergonomic and faster mashing, which helps out a lot, especially when needing to mash confirm during certain dialogues. We'll select the girl character since May talks a lot more than Brendan, but since we play as a silent protagonist, we only need to worry about how much our rival talks. But the main reason we select May is for a much easier Rival 2 fight, where we can set up X items on a Slugma that has Ember and Yawn rather than a Wingull with Growl, because if we get growled once, that induces 2 X attacks and the run is pretty much over at that point.
Well, dead. If he uses Growl, the run is over.
Back to character creation, we'll also want to give ourselves a 1 character name, as this game renders text at 1 character per frame, which across a full any % glitchless run, shorter names save several minutes. So it likely saves at least a minute in this category as well. Then Professor Birch will shoot a shrink ray at us, and we'll wake up in the back of a moving truck. We'll proceed through the beginning section of the game, setting our clock to the default time, and we learn that our dad is not only the Petalburg gym leader, but also has a friend next door with a son about the same age as us. I actually didn't know this from my first couple of attempts, but you could start the first rival dialogue a bit quicker by going up the stairs in the house and then going straight back down rather than interacting with the Pokeball. We'll head outside of the house and hear a big commotion going on up ahead. Professor Birch is being chased around and eventually gets pinned up against a wall by a Zigzagoon. And while I personally think a grown-ass man could take on a level 5 Zigzagoon and wouldn't need help from a 10-year-old, we'll oblige and dig through his bag for a Pokemon. But before we can get into any of this, we're going to save the game and prepare for the first manip of the speedrun. In Pokemon Emerald, the seed for RNG is set to 0 upon a soft reset. From there, RNG advances once per frame in general, but there are other events that will perform additional calls, like whenever an NPC decides to move. All you really need to know is that for most random elements, if you boot up the game and move in the exact same fashion every time, you'll get the exact same outcomes. But again, these actions need to be performed frame perfectly, and Pokemon Emerald runs at 60 frames per second. So your reaction time for certain manips, like the one used for the starter Pokemon, needs to be exactly 1/60th of a second, or the trick just won't work. In order to pull off a frame perfect input like this, speedrunners will use a metronome to give an artificial audio cue for when to press each input. This is why when you see me do attempts, I close my eyes and try to press buttons the same time every time. But for the Mudkip manip, I used a paste spin that showed all the surrounding frames for the Mudkip I want, so if I was consistently showing up a few frames early or a few frames late, I would adjust my metronome by about 17 milliseconds for each frame I was off by until I was mostly consistent. But in reality, even the most talented of speedrunners only hit this about 50% of the time. So in a way you could say even the RNG manipulation has pseudo RNG involved, especially since the input is not only frame perfect, but you also need to start the metronome and reset the game at the same time frame perfectly as well, if you want any semblance of consistency. Anyways, now that you guys hopefully understand the basics of RNG manipulation, let's go step by step on how I perform this. So first we'll pause and save the game 1 tile away from the bag. You may think that being 1 tile away is part of the manip, but it actually isn't. We just do it because we have to wait a bit before we select the Mudkip anyways, so we might as well save 1 tile of movement. With this in mind, why wouldn't we just save several tiles away from the bag if we have to wait anyways? This was also my thought process when I first began doing runs, and after an hour of resetting that Mudkip, the world record holder Amoeba came into my chat to inform me that I probably wasn't doing anything wrong. But because I was saving so far away from the bag, an NPC located on the same route, while it isn't shown on screen, is still loaded in, and anytime it moves, the RNG advances. This means that while maybe I was missing the correct frames, it could have also been NPCs randomly moving off screen that were throwing everything off. So we just save 1 tile away because as long as we step forward and open the bag quickly, there's no chance of them moving immediately after boot up. Anyways, while the game is saving, I'll hold A, B, and select, and then once the game saves, I'll press start to reset the game and also start my metronome at the same time. Next, we'll need to advance through the boot up splash screens as quickly as possible. Right after the Game Freak logo fades to black, if we hold B, it will buffer into the next cutscene and skip it immediately. I'll then press start game and mash through the dry battery dialog, and then time the first input for the manip while selecting the save file. Although this input is pretty simple as it's a 34 frame window, and it decides the specific Zigzagoon we want for this fight. Next, I'll walk forward and open the bag and hover yes on Mudkip, and then really try to time this one perfectly, as this is the input that has a 1-frame window. And then once I get into battle, I'll do my final input on the first dialogue, which is a 6-frame window to manip the Zigzagoon into tackling turn 1 for a consistent and fast fight. I'll be looking for some key identifiers here, and if I get anything other than what I'm looking for, I'll instantly reset, the first being a male Zigzagoon. Then I'll need to make sure I have a male Mudkip with 21 HP. If this is all good, I can proceed with tackling the Zigzagoon, and it should tackle me back. But I guess I messed up that part of the manip, so I decided to just check my Mudkip manually. For the speedrun, we want a Mudkip with a good speed stat, really high attack, with good special attack and a naughty nature, which also gives a boost to its attack. All other stats don't really make a huge difference for the speedrun, so we don't need to get an absolutely perfect IV Mudkip, just one that's good enough and fast to catch. Getting this specific Mudkip is extremely important for the run because it makes all the damage rolls and ranges super consistent, eliminating most of the RNG throughout the run. In this case, I did manage to get the correct Mudkip, and on my first try, which is a pretty good start to the run. Now, while it does appear I'm done with the Mudkip manip, advanced speedrunners will go the extra mile and go for what's called an extended manip, which is why it's so important to manip the Zigzagoon's tackle to end the fight at the exact same time every time. You know, assuming Zigzagoon's tackle actually lands, and we don't get a double low roll tackle with Mudkip. The next input for the extended manip is a final dialogue showing the experience gained. Afterwards, we'll just need to mash away and meet Birch in his lab. As a thanks for saving him from the rabid Zigzagoon, Birch will give us the Mudkip, and we'll want to give it a 1-character name as well. For runners doing the extended manip, the next important input will be the final bit of Birch's dialogue. What runners are trying to achieve with the extended manip is to go from Little Route to Route 103 while not getting a single encounter. To do this, not only do they need to have precise timing on every input for the manip so far, but they also need to pay attention to the NPCs in the lab and in Little Route, because like I said before, NPCs' movement is random, and depending on how they move will advance RNG accordingly, including the directions they move in. Xarion has a great guide explaining how to pull this off, which is summarized, depending on how the scientists in the lab and the fat guy outside of the lab move, determines how to move all the way to the rival. The key checkpoints to worry about are the bottom or top tiles here, the bottom or top tiles here, the sign here, the middle or top tiles here, and finally, the sign here. So to give an example using the world record, we can see the scientist moves right a bit later. So if we refer to the sheet, we can see that late right means that the fat guy movement doesn't matter at all, and the order is top, middle, top, top, and 1 after the sign. So when we watch Amoebas run back, we can see he turns at the top tiles here, the middle tiles here, the top tiles here, he goes straight past the sign since the sign is never mentioned in the notes for this manip, and then he does the top tiles here, and finally goes 1 tile past the sign, walking around it to get 0 encounters. The run you're watching was achieved on only my 4th day of speedrunning this game, so I wasn't quite in the position to begin doing extended manips, because I was already struggling on the base Mudkip manip on its own, and if you go for the extended manip without actually knowing how to do it, you're just going to screw up the movement and basically manip encounters into your run, rather than the opposite, because most movements outside of what's shown in the sheet do not work. On average, speedrunners going through this section without the extended manip can expect to get 1 to 2 encounters, and in a worst case situation, even 4, which can bleed out a ton of time. But if you're a god gamer like me, you don't need extended manips, because somehow I managed to walk all the way to the rival without getting a single one, which is just exceedingly rare. For the battle, we're just going to mash tackle, which unlike pound is for some reason 95% accurate, so it is possible to die in this fight with a good combination of misses and crits from the rival's Trico, but most of the time we should be fine. After finishing this fight, we'll head back to the lab to meet up with Professor Birch and Brendan. Birch gives us a Pokédex, Brendan gives us 5 Pokeballs, and we make our way back outside of the lab. We'll meet up with our mom and want to stand next to her so that she doesn't walk away from the house to give us our running shoes. But once we have those, we finally start moving around a lot quicker. At this point, obviously the extended manip is no longer in play, so we'll make our way to Petalburg, ideally avoiding as many encounters as possible. Then we'll face the first final boss of the speedrun, Youngster Calvin and his level 5 Poochyena. The reason this fight is so difficult is because we don't get a heal after defeating the rival, so whatever health we have we're stuck with. Or if we're really down bad on HP, we can talk to mom for a quick heal, but in this case, I decided to just YOLO it because of how good my RNG was so far. Ideally the Pooch just howls the whole time and doesn't do any damage, but if it does decide to tackle, we'll hope for no crits or the off chance it just flat out misses. In my case, he did howl every single turn, but I got enough low rolls on my tackles that I get an extra attack, and here's what happened.
Just finish it right here. Oh! I should have mud slapped. I was too excited though. I was way too excited.
But after further review, I was actually safe here, but my heart did drop a little bit. After this fight, we'll continue making our way to Petalburg, and all their trainer battles at this point are optional. If we do run into any Pokemon our way, it's best to just run away immediately. But if we stumble across a level 4 Lotad or a Ralts, we can defeat them to opt for an early XP route, where we unlock certain moves slightly earlier, as well as evolutions to save back some of the time from the additional encounter. Before we head to the gym, we'll stop at the Pokemart and buy 2 potions and 5 repels, so for the rest of the run we can pretty much just avoid random encounters whenever, unless we need them. And we now have some potions for some added safety. Next we'll enter the Pokemon Center and immediately exit to override a respawn point. After leaving the Pokemon Center, we'll meet up with our dad at the gym. Mid-conversation, we're interrupted by Wally, some random kid who's looking for a Pokemon. Our dad hands him a Zigzagoon and a Pokeball, and then volunteers us to teach him how to catch Pokemon, despite not ever catching one before. Of course, this is just the standard catching tutorial that's in every Pokemon game, but there are some interesting things that can happen here. The stats of both Zigzagoon and Ralts are completely random, but if Wally manages to find a Zigzagoon with high attack IVs, an attack boosting nature, and hits the 1 in 16 high damage roll twice against a Ralts with low defense IVs, and a defense lowering nature, it is possible for the Ralts to get KO'd, saving a little under 30 seconds from the rest of the encounter. Although I think it's safe to say this hasn't been seen in an actual speedrun yet, as the odds of this occurring are 1 in 200,000. But this is less due to rarity, and that there's probably only a small band of RNG frames that exist between Mudkip to now, that there's most likely a 0% chance speedrunners could achieve this. Then of course there's also the legendary Worcester clip where Wally managed to find a shiny Ralts.
Are you kidding me? He found a shiny Ralts! Are you fucking kidding me?
This is just as rare as finding a shiny normally, which is 1 in 8,192 odds, but unfortunately for Worcester, the shiny animation only lost some time here, and to add insult to injury, the Ralts doesn't even say shiny for the rest of the run. Anyways, moving on, we'll finish speaking with our dad, get interrupted by Scott, and then finally start making our way to Rustboro to take on the first gym leader. We'll run to the beach here to avoid any encounters, and then just before running in the grass, use a repel and a potion. When heading into Petalburg Woods, we'll be introduced to our first spinner. A spinner is an optional trainer battle in the Pokemon games, and in Gen 3, they are very consistent to manipulate. While they do all have their own different patterns and turn speeds, there are some things they all have in common. The first is that if you try to run past them, they will always react to your presence, and they will catch you, so try to avoid doing that. Next is that no matter the speed of the rotation cycle, the first turn upon being loaded in always takes 32 frames. Although this doesn't mean much if you don't know about movement speeds. When our character is walking, it takes 16 frames to move one tile. When running, it only takes 8, and whenever we turn from a dead stop, the turning animation takes 8 frames, which is what we call a turn frame. Anytime we select the Pokédex, view our party, open the bag, or view the trainer card or options menu, spinners are loaded in. So if we stand next to a spinner while they're not facing towards us, it's possible to just open and close the bag, giving ourselves the 31 frame window to walk past. So even if our walk includes a turn frame, this would add up to 24 frames total, still having plenty of time to walk past. Just make sure if you try this, you close the pause menu with start rather than B, otherwise you'll buffer run straight into the spinner. This is the most consistent and slowest way for getting past spinners, and takes a little over 2 seconds to perform. But it's really useful for beginners, as getting even one additional battle is probably worse than bag manipping every single spinner throughout the run, but don't quote me on that. The more challenging version is a running manip. The running detection of each spinner differs slightly. We can see that when we run to the tile down right from where he's standing, it forces him to look down. Whenever we force a spinner to look a certain direction, it resets their current rotation so we get the same 31 frame window to walk past like I stated before, but without having to open up a menu. Since you need to be running to set this up, means that you have an 8 frame window to let go of run, which can be somewhat challenging, but consistent with practice. Unfortunately, I didn't make it past the first spinner. I didn't input incorrectly here, as in what you saw me do is what I intended, but I did not have a great understanding of the spinner mechanics here, as I thought running and walking one tile here would still work, and I'd save a whole 2 tiles. but sadly I was mistaken and lost nearly 2 minutes due to my mistake. Continuing our trek through Petalburg Woods, we stumble across a Devon Corporation researcher just before he gets ambushed by a member of Team Aqua with his beefy level 9 Poochyena. This fight can be a bit stressful since this Pooch can use Sand Attack, lowering the accuracy of our already somewhat inaccurate tackle, and it's not unheard of to lose runs to it, or at least have it waste a little number of potions we have. Since I had that added in trainer battle, I'm now doing the early XP route, which allows me to fight this trainer at level 8, only requiring 4 tackles to kill rather than 5. And in this case I landed all my tackles, won the fight, and was awarded a great ball for my efforts. Moving on, we'll have one more spinner to run past, which if I was on low HP, I could just hug the right side and bag manip to use a potion to get by. But my HP was fine, so I just did the standard movement to get past as redemption for my earlier blunder. After exiting the forest, I'll run past one more spinner and avoid another trainer. On the bridge is a forced double battle, but since we only have one Pokemon, it doesn't activate and we can just run past the twins. Then upon arriving to Rustboro, we'll enter the gym. In the gym, we'll need to fight every single trainer since not only do we need Water Gun, but the XP gained here is needed for later in the route. Since I'm doing the early XP route, this means instead of fighting the first youngster, I'm going to battle the second one instead. This is because with early XP, this Geodude gets beat with 5 mud slaps rather than 6, saving a bit of time. Anyways, once all the trainers in the gym are cleared out, it's time for another mildly stressful fight against Roxanne. To be honest, I don't think this fight is that bad, but it is possible to get janked out from a straight crit, or if we're just too low on potions and get unlucky. But of course the game plan remains mostly the same, water gunning both Geodudes, and then we're finally onto the nose pass. Now in an ideal scenario, we'd simply get a decent roll with water gun, just shy of triggering any heals, and then get a crit finishing the fight instantly. But of course my good RNG did have to calm down at least a little bit, and my fight was pretty standard. In Pokemon Emerald, enemies we face either have good AI or bad AI. Bad AI picks moves at random, it doesn't do any damage calculations, and can sometimes pick moves that are utterly useless. Good AI, however, will generally use its strongest move and go for the kill when it can. It will use stat boosts and debuffs when beneficial, and for the most part never uses useless moves. There are some exceptions for each enemy that are duly noted in the space bin made by Xarion, but I think the most interesting thing I learned is that when deciding if a move kills or not, the AI first does a simulated roll separate from the actual damage roll of the move that gets used. So in my case, when I dropped to 15 health, I did decide to use a potion since Rock Tomb does 13 to 16 damage. But let's say in this case I didn't. In this case the Nose Pass would have done a simulated roll, and if it landed lower than 15, it would have used a different move. But wait, if Roxanne's AI is good, wouldn't it just use Rock Tomb anyways since it's the most powerful? And the answer is actually no. Because Rock Tomb has less accuracy, it prefers Tackle, and since Nose Pass already outspeeds us, it won't use it. You know, unless the move can kill. Or at least if the simulated roll says it can. Yeah, this is way more confusing than it needs to be. Just spam Water Gun and Potion if you're 16 HP or lower, and you'll be alright. Finishing off Roxanne, I managed gold to split by a few minutes. Just upon exiting the gym, we're interrupted by Team Aqua and the Devon researcher once again, claiming he's been robbed for his goods. Rather than hiring security to prevent this from happening in the first place, or reporting it to the police, this guy instead enlists the help from a 10-year-old little girl, so we'll begin tracking down the Team Aqua grunt. Heading into the tall grass, we won't actually be activating a repel, because we're going to need to catch some Pokemon. The first Pokemon we catch doesn't matter, and by simply tackling most of the Pokemon in this route, and throwing the Great Ball we have, pretty much guarantees the catch. Then I'll run manip past this bug catcher and save the game on the specific tile while my character faces up and Karen to the right of us faces down. After resetting the game, I'll walk 2 steps to the right and then run to manip and Abra on this exact tile. The frame window and pressing the save file for this manip is a 3-frame window, which isn't too bad at all. But I'll need to also time my inputs for opening the bag and throwing the ball, which are even more lenient. Thankfully, I managed to get this on my first try. After getting an encounter, it's impossible to get another after 4 tiles of movement, so I can safely run forward to this double battle and then pause the game when the hiker is looking up and the youngster is looking to the right. Then I'll pause the game, open the bag, use the repel, and walk forward. This additional hiker fight is part of the early XP route and would otherwise be avoided if I wasn't doing it, but I'll explain why I do it here in just a moment. After this fight, I'll need to run manip this youngster, which is actually really tricky because you have to react to the movement instantly after gaining control of your character again. This is why I just step out for a moment to mentally prepare, otherwise I'd probably just mess it up. After defeating the next hiker, we'll head into the Rust Surf Tunnel to confront the Aqua Grunt over stealing the Devon goods, and for some reason also stealing some old dude's pet Wingull. Why would he even want this? There's literally free Pokemon everywhere. You just need to know how to catch them.
You can take them and legally, without any permits, and just bring them back home.
Need another set of pants?
Anyways, this fight is pretty simple, and if we happen to be at 1/3 health bar or lower, this puts Mudkip in Torrent, giving it a 50% boost to its water moves, allowing us to beat this grunt and several other trainers a lot quicker. It won't come into play for this fight, but definitely will later on. Also, the purpose of the early XP route is so that after this fight against the grunt, Mudkip will evolve into Marshtomp, making the upcoming fight a little bit easier with a newly learned Mudshot, which is about where the benefits from this route taper off. We'll then head out of the cave, run past Karen again, which I was supposed to pause for to make sure she didn't spin towards me, since it is a 1 in 8 chance for that to happen, but it worked out in this case, and then I need to run past the bug catcher. Funnily enough, this was another situation where what I inputted is what I intended, but I didn't know you had to walk for 2 steps here, and I thought you could just walk for 1. So me trying to save 8 frames resulted in me losing 50 seconds. Listen, this was my 4th speedrun of the game ever, so cut me some slack. After returning the goods back to the Devon researcher, he'll take us back to the Devon headquarters to speak with the company president. Our first reward for helping out the Devon Corporation is a side quest to deliver the package we recovered to Slateport and keep it safe from literal criminals. Again, 10-year-old little girl. Our second reward is the letter, and a second mini quest to traverse through a pitch black dangerous cave to deliver said letter in Dewford. Makes sense to me. But in exchange for our good deeds, we are finally rewarded with the worst item in the game, the Pokénav, which only serves as an annoyance to get random calls interrupting our gameplay. This is why I purposely have a dead battery, because any random calls we normally get no longer occur with the internal clock, so get fucked Devon Corp. Sorry, too far? Anyways, after leaving the headquarters, we'll get a free heal for our party, and after a quick Pokénav tutorial, we can teleport with Abra to head straight back to the Petalburg Pokemon Center. While here, we'll also stop at the Pokemart and buy 3x attacks, 2x speeds, and the max number of repels we can afford. The order we buy items does actually matter for easier menuing later on. Then we'll head back to the beach. Just before entering Mr. Briney's house, we'll be challenged by the rival for a battle, but this fight is optional and we can just mash B to skip it. Then we'll enter the house, talk to Mr. Briney, and set sail for Dewford. So normally in Pokemon games, you need to defeat gym leaders to be able to learn certain HMs in order to progress. But for Brawly, he only allows us to learn Flash, which doesn't halt progression at all, so we'll wait to fight him later when we're stronger, as we need to visit Dewford on the way back to Petalburg anyways, and the XP we'd gain from it wouldn't help much anyways, as Marshtomp is already pretty powerful. Traversing through Granite Cave blind isn't too bad, and I sort of have different objects memorized to serve as checkpoints. After entering the cave, we'll grab an escape rope, and at some point halfway through, we'll need to use another rappel, and that's pretty much it. Eventually we'll meet up with Steven, and we'll want to position ourselves beside him to avoid Steven slowly pathing around us when he leaves. Next we'll use the escape rope we picked up earlier to quickly exit, then head back to Mr. Briney and set sail for Slateport. While on the beach, we'll first speak with his tuber to get soft sand, and then head into the city. Although we'll have to be precise with our movement on the beach to not run into any trainers. We'll then head to the shipyard to deliver Captain Stern's package, although we learn he isn't there and need to go find him at the museum. What I like to do here is during the turn frame after turning left out of the building, pause the game and put on the soft sand. This is because if you press start or really any action during a turn frame, the game will buffer the action frame perfectly after the turn is completed, which is one of the few instances where you can buffer anything in this game. Afterwards, we can head into the museum, and we should always have at least 50 coins for the entrance fee, but even if we don't, the workers will let us in for free to avoid any potential soft locks, but at the cost of a few extra dialogue boxes. We'll meet up with Captain Stern, and a battle ensues between us and some Team Aqua grunts. With our newly acquired Marshtomp, we can quickly take out the first Carvana with Mudshot, the Zubat with 2 tackles, and the final Carvana with Mudshot again. Archie comes in, calls it grunt simps, which I find hilarious, and then dips out after finishing his one-sided conversation. We'll hand over the goods, get another full heal, and then head north of Slateport. There's a required double battle up ahead with 2 Pokefans, but in most situations, it's faster to fight each trainer one at a time. When passing the spinner in Route 110, I'll use a different type of manip called the pause manip. This is used for spinners where the first 2 possible spin chances are after 32 and 64 frames. We'll also pick up the nearby full heal as a nice backup in case anything goes wrong in the upcoming rival fight. This fight is the most difficult out of the entire Any% and Any% Glitchless speedrun, with only a 76% chance we're able to clear it. We'll start out by setting up an X speed and 2 X attacks on the Slugma. If we get burned after setting up the X items, we'll need to use a full heal, and if at any point we're put to sleep, we just have to wait it out. Now during this run, I made a crucial mistake on this fight. I forgot that the last move I used was Mud Slap, and my cursor was one position below where it should be. So when I blindly menued right, instead of using Mud Shot like I intended, I used Tackle, which was a crucial error. You see, during this fight, we are supposed to use a Tackle and a Mud Shot on Grovyle, but not in that order. This is made more clear when we watch my second attempt at the fight, because thankfully I did save the game beforehand. If I start with Mud Shot, Grovyle's speed will drop, and then the next turn Grovyle will use Quick Attack instead of Absorb if it has the opportunity to kill. As long as we have 10 HP or higher, we'll be out of the range for Quick Attack, and Grovyle will instead choose Absorb again. But since we outspeed it, we can finish it off with Tackle, just so we can avoid the not very effective text box. While this fight looks mostly scripted on paper, it really isn't, since if Tackle or Mud Shot misses on Grovyle, or Grovyle crits any of its moves, it's GG. The final Pokemon in the lineup is Wingull, which can get a bit sketchy with such low HP, but a double Tackle or a Tackle and a Water Gun will be all we need to finish off this fight. With Marshtomp now being in Torrent, the next fight is easy, killing Magnemite in one hit, and then one last time we'll need to pray for no high roll crit from Abra's Hidden Power, which can hit a 6 with a 1 in 256 chance. But with that, we're finally out of the danger zone and can head into Mauville, picking up an elixir on the way out. While in Mauville, we'll pick up Rock Smash and the Mach Bike. Menuing once again, we'll teach Rock Smash to Marshtomp, bind the Mach Bike to select, and head east to fight the youngster. We'll have to fight this youngster later on anyways, but other than the slight detour, the fight takes the same amount of time since we're still in Torrent from earlier and can just spam Water Gun on all the enemies. The additional XP also gives more favorable damage rolls for Watson, making that fight a cakewalk. But before we can do that, we'll head into the nearby Pokemon Center, heal to full health, and then fight Wally, who's chilling outside of the gym. He's beaten easily in one hit. The puzzle in Watson's gym is also pretty simple. We'll just need to beat this youngster, who is pretty annoying because this Zigzagoon is a range to kill with Mud Shot, and if we miss the range, we can get Growled, costing an extra turn on Gulpin as well. After the battle, we can simply press this button, and we can go face off against Watson. We'll set up with 1x attack and 1x speed on the Voltorb, and then begin taking out his entire party with Mud Shot. I managed to hit every Mud Shot, and also avoided the 1 in 16 low roll against Manectric, finishing off the fight with ease. Now we'll be making our way through a giant stretch to reach the 4th gym leader, Flannery. But since we unlocked the Mach Bike earlier, we'll be able to progress through the next section a whole lot quicker. The Mach Bike moves at a speed of 4 frames per tile, which is incredibly fast, and is the fastest iteration of any bike in any Pokemon game, arguably making this game the most nuanced when it comes to movement. Similar to my movement in Granite Cave, I'll use visual indicators to keep myself on track, but even for experienced runners, it can be very difficult to maintain perfect control. But I made sure to practice this first section thoroughly, because another way you can skip certain trainers is by flying past them as they're loaded in before they even get the chance to turn. But we need to make sure that we're approaching them with straight lines and not waiting too late before turning, or that extra time spent while they're loaded in will get us caught. Oh, also, since we're not using a repel, there's a 10% chance of a Geodude spawning when using Rock Smash along the way for free time loss. I'll stop on this tile and activate a repel, and then head up into the mountains to the fiery path. The first camper can simply just be bike pass, but I'll then need to purposely bonk my bike into the side of the staircase to instantly stop, hop off the bike, run 2 tiles away from the hiker, and then perfectly hop back on the bike and bike pass. You can simply think of this as a normal run manip, since the Mach Bike takes some time before reaching max speed, and the first tile it travels takes 16 frames, and the next 8. Even though we are technically going the same speed as we would be on running shoes, we're still able to run manip past the spinner, making it slightly faster than the standard running manip for that reason. Plus, once we get past, we're already on the bike going full speed. The difficult part is just getting on the bike fluidly after you finish running. There's no buffer, and any frames could potentially mean getting caught by the hiker. I fumbled this a little bit, but instead of opting for a bag manip, I decided to try it again, as at this point this was just a practice run to me. Normally we'd want the repel to end just before these 2 spinners to make sure we avoid the encounters in the grass to stop the bike instantly, but either way we'll need to wait for them both to turn away and bag manip to get past. Afterwards, I'll then head into the desert real quick to reload the cool trainer over here, allow me to bike right past him. Just as we approach Route 113, we'll want to bonk into this rock and activate a repel. The movement in this upcoming section might be the most difficult in the game, and any extra battles are obviously really bad to happen, but especially if you were to accidentally trigger the double battle. I pretty much lost all momentum and flow on this one and had to rely purely on instinct and just fear, because every other time I attempted this in a run, I managed to somehow hit a trainer. The movement was sloppy, but I got out with my dignity mostly attached. Now let's head into Pokemart. Here I'll buy 2 super potions for safety, 5 super repels, 1x speed, 5x attacks, and 1 guard spec. On my way to Meteor Falls, I like to bag manip this camper since I need a super repel anyways. From here I'll take a detour and pick up this protein given more favorable ranges to Marshtomp, which is definitely really worth to grab. I'll then battle this hiker, which is a bit of a cakewalk, but I'll need to pay attention to where the camper to the west is facing. Ideally I'll want her facing down, so whenever I get out of the battle, she'll be frozen for 31 frames. I can then use a slow mock bike speed to maneuver around, bonk, run forward 1 step, hop on the bike again, and zoom past. I take a really wide turn around this hiker because last run I think I alerted him. But all these extra steps will make my repel wear off sooner. Also, watching back this section is pretty funny because I bonk into this wall, and you can see on my input display, I am desperately trying to move, but because I was inputting my turns for the 4-frame mock bike movement and not waiting for the 8-frame turn frame to happen, I was just kind of stuck there for a bit. Anyways, moving on to Meteor Falls, we're introduced to Team Magma, who have taken a meteorite from the area and are headed to Mount Chimney to make the volcano erupt, so that when the lava cools, there will be more land for everyone, and everyone will be happy. 10 out of 10 plot, to be honest. You see, we're somewhat locked behind being able to beat this game any quicker due to this whole Team Magma and Aqua storyline going on in the background. In order for this route to work, we need Surf, and we can't unlock Surf until we beat our dad in the Petalburg Gym. But we can't battle him until we have 4 badges. And we can't reach Flannery until we can use a cable car. And even once we can use a cable car, we have to clear Team Magma out of Mount Chimney. But before we head to Mount Chimney, we'll need to run some errands first. I'll first start by exiting Meteor Falls, bike manip past this black belt, and then head back to Rustboro to revisit the Devon headquarters once more. After speaking with the president, he'll give us the experience share, which will come in handy later. Next we'll head east again, doing the same spinner manips we did earlier in the run, and go back to the Rust Turf Tunnel. Here if we perform Rock Smash, we'll reunite this couple that was blocked by the rocks, and gifted the HM for strength in return. We'll then head back out from where we came and do some menuing. First we'll super repel, then use a protein on Marshtomp, then teach it strength, and finally move the cursor left twice so it's preemptively on guard spec. Then we can teleport with Abra back to Mauville and head to the cable car, taking the same path as earlier. This time I kind of messed up my steps and had my repel end early. Normally we'd want it to end just past this hiker, and if he's not looking at us, we have enough time to get past. But instead for some reason, I completely YOLO walked around him, but it worked out. After entering the cable car, we'll head up to Mount Chimney to confront Team Magma. The next couple of fights are pretty simple, as now that we have strength, we have a strong normal type move with 100% accuracy, and for anything else, we can just use Water Gun. Before fighting Maxie, we'll want to switch Marshtomp to slot 2 with whichever sacrifice Pokemon we picked up earlier. This is for 2 reasons. The first is so that we can set up a guard spec against Poochyena to avoid Intimidate lowering our attack, and also knock out whichever Pokemon we send out, which will be needed for later. Next we'll set up a next attack on Marshtomp and begin mowing through Maxie's team. Since I use a protein, Mudshot kills everything in one attack, so I just have to hope it doesn't miss. After winning, Maxie forfeits a meteorite, Team Magma clears out, and finally we can go fight Flannery. We'll head through the jagged pass, avoiding all trainers, which is pretty easy to do since there's so many objects to bonk off of to cut movement. Towards the end, I'll bonk off this tree, and then bag manip this camper to use a super potion and elixir on Marshtomp. In Flannery's gym, we'll just have to get through this maze, which is pretty easy to remember. For some reason I messed up my movement here though, and accidentally triggered a trainer battle, costing me 30 seconds, which was actually the first additional battle I had that was simply an input error, and not from me not knowing how spinners work. Even I was a bit confused, as it looks like I somehow forced a turn frame to occur, which is what messed up the movement. Anyways, moving on to the Flannery fight, I'll first water gun the Numel, and then set up some X items while I fight Slugma. In this case, I accidentally used an X speed when I was only supposed to use an X attack, but whatever. I'll take out Camerupt in one shot due to the protein, but a Sunny Day Torkoal could cause some issues. Or I can just hit a crit and not have to worry about all that. I'll then stop by this herb shop, which basically sells all the same items you'd use anyways, but at a massively discounted price, and stock up on some energy roots and heal powders. I'll then head out, get past this camper, head into the desert, and loot a rare candy from this rock. Then I'll switch Marshtomp back with a sacrifice, and teleport back to Mauville. Now we'll be traversing all the way back to Slateport, through the beach, and finally to Mr. Briny to head to Dewford to finally finish off the second gym. The maze here is pretty simple, and of course so is the gym itself. I mean, we were supposed to beat this forever ago. All the enemies here die instantly to strength, other than the Poochyena, which is a 14 out of 16 chance to die if we use the protein. I'll then use a rare candy and Marshtomp to level it up, and head to Petalburg. Since I accidentally wasted my XP on Flannery, I went and picked up an extra one at the nearby Pokemart, and then headed inside. The trainers in this gym are actually pretty strong, but we shouldn't have too much to worry about with the surplus of healing items. Swallow is taken out in 2 hits, Spinda is taken out in 2 hits, and then just before we fight the last trainer in the gym, Cool Trainer Jody, we'll want to equip the experience share to Abra to begin training in CVs. It will be made more obvious why we do this later on, but let's just focus on getting past this gym first. Jody's Zangoose can cause a few issues. It can open up with either Slash or Sword Stance. While the Zangoose should be taken out with just 2 mud shots, and we should avoid getting Slash a second turn due to the speed drop, if these mud shots miss or low roll, we'll have to tank at least 1 hit. In my case, if I missed my mud shot, I would have had a 1 in 4 chance to die to Slash, since Zangoose decided to use Sword Dance. Moving on will finally be against the second toughest fight of the run versus Norman. The way this fight plays out in an any % run is a bit different than any % glitchless run, because we went on this fight with low HP to set up for the Pomeg berry glitch I talked about at the beginning of the video. We'll start out by setting up with X items in the Spinda, since it tends to spam low power moves and teeter dance a bunch, even if we're already confused. Once 3 X attacks and 1 X speed are applied, we'll heal up to a decent amount of health, clear out the confusion, and take out the Spinda. Next up is the Vigoroth. We'll want to open with a water gun to ensure that even if we crit, there's no chance it does enough damage to warrant a hyper potion. Then we'll farm for a good damage roll before moving on, ideally landing somewhere around 64 HP. In my case, I got dropped down to 65, and then use strength to finish it off. Lanoon is up next, and we really want this mud shot to land to not mess up the HP we just set up. Once that's out of the way, we'll learn Takedown, and then we're finally onto the true final boss, Norman Slacking. We'll open up with Rock Smash for 2 reasons. The first is in hopes for a defense drop on Slacking, and also because it can potentially use Counter, which if used would put us at a low HP. But even if it used Facade instead, we'd still be fine. If I did get a defense drop, then the fight is pretty easy from here, because using Strength twice would just be an auto win. But in my case, I didn't get a defense drop for the first turn, but I did for the second. Mid-run, I forgot what to do if the first defense drop didn't happen, so I decided to play it safe and heal. But as we can see here, Mudshot would have been enough to take him out. At the end of the day, this isn't even that bad of a play anyways, because if the Mudshot misses, then that's GG, so the additional insurance was nice to have. And just like that, we have finally defeated the 5th and final gym leader for the speedrun, but there's still quite a bit we need to get done. The drawback to healing during that battle is that I left with 38 HP rather than 8, so I had some ground to make up, because by the end of the next grind, I'll need to have 1 HP for the Pomeg glitch. But in the meantime, we will unlock Surf from Wally's dad, and then swim in a pond nearby to grab a rare candy. If we run into a Meryl while in the water, we can defeat it for 2 HP EVs. If for some reason you didn't know, every time you defeat a Pokemon, you get these points called effort values applied to your Pokemon, making them stronger over time, and is separate to leveling. We began EV training Abra in the gym earlier. In order to finish it off with the perfect stats, we need 4 attack and 4 HP EVs. This is easiest to do near a Little Root because we have access to a dense population of weak Pokemon with these attributes, plus they have more manageable HP values for takedown. The first thing I'll do is head back towards Little Root, dealing with any additional encounters along the way. On my way to the bug catcher, I managed to find 2 Wurmple, so that's 2 HP EVs out of the way, and then by fighting the bug catcher, we'll fight another 2 Wurmple, finishing off all the required HP EVs for this run. Now I'll just need to find 4 Poochyena and get down to 1 HP from the 25 I'm at before moving on. Normally we do our farming in Route 101 south of Oldale, but since I have all the required Wurmple, I'll go north to Route 103 instead for a denser population of Pooch, with additional fodder like Zigzagoon and Wingull that will lower my HP without messing up the EV training at all. When using Takedown to lower HP, level 2 Pokemon always do 3 damage. Level 3s do either 3 or 4 damage depending on HP IVs, and level 4s are always 4. Everything was going to plan. I had 2 Pooches down, and leading into my 3rd Pooch encounter, I had 7 HP. This is an awkward HP to deal with, since if you want to set this up with no risk, you need 2 level 2 Pokemon, but in this case I was faced with a level 4. I decided to perform a backup where I'd swap Marshtomp in and out of battle since Pooch only knows Tackle, and it does 2 damage, which would put me at the perfect HP for takedown to drop me down to 1. But then of course I got hit with a crit, putting me at 2 HP. This is an even more awkward HP to deal with, since there's literally no way in this instance to lose exactly 1 HP. While I scrambled trying to figure out what to do next, I finished off my last Pooch, so at this point we were done EV training on Abra. The plan now was to remove the experience share off Abra so it could take down as many Pokemon as I wanted and grab the free potion from the Pokemart lady to heal up to 22 HP and try again. I spent a bit of time lowering my HP and I was finally down to 4 HP. I saved the game so I could potentially gamble on any level 3s that came my way, but of course all I wanted at this point was a level 2 of any kind. First up was a level 3 Wingull, but its HP was too high and I died. I tried again and found a level 3 Pooch, and luckily this one did 3 damage, finally putting me at 1 HP. I should have ended the segment at 122.20, and instead I was leaving at 125.30. Pain. Anyways, moving on, we'll need to teleport back to Mauville and head back up north by the Winstraight house to grab an HP up to put the additional and final 10 HP EVs on Abra. Afterwards, we'll teleport back again and head east of Mauville to locate the decadent Pomeg berries. Since we cleared out all the forced trainer battles here earlier, we can just fly through on the Mach Bike and swim across Route 118. At this point in the run, nerves are at an all-time high, so I'm not really in the business of doing any more manips and opt for swimming around all the trainers here. I'll bonk on the sign and hop off the bike and really just take my time getting through here, since I don't know if battling anything screws up Marshtomp, but I do not want to find out. The spinner up here can be manipped, but she also moves in a set cycle, so I just walk past. And finally, the Pomeg berries are mine. Oh, also one last thing I forgot to do was make sure Abra was the last Pokemon sent out to battle. I initially thought that Abra needed to be the last Pokemon sent out to battle in this specific route, but that's only because that's what the world record holder does. But apparently it was just something he forgot to do, so he did it here as a backup, and it would be better to just do this during or after EV training instead. Anyways, once we finally have all the EVs trained on the specific Abra we manipped earlier, a Marshtomp with 1 HP, a KO'd filler Pokemon in the party, and Abra being the last Pokemon sent out to battle, we're ready to continue. First we'll begin changing a bunch of the box names to a bunch of seemingly random characters, but what we're doing here is actually writing code to be executed once we finish setting up this glitch. This can be really stressful to perform because we are still in the middle of a speedrun. So not only do we need to be fast, but if even a single character is typed incorrectly, the trick just isn't going to work. Luckily, a lot of the characters we need to use generally end up being close together, or sometimes stacked on top of each other when flipping through pages. So it's relatively easy to memorize most of them like this, or phonetically. I still do refer to notes while doing this, but using the other memorization methods sort of helps keep me quick and serves as a failsafe, as if I do something wrong, it will most likely feel wrong as well, and I'll probably notice it. Once this is done, we'll need to flip back to the second box and deposit Abra in the 24th slot. Now it's time to save, pray, and let the magic begin. I could technically save after this step, but once we use a Pomeg berry and Marshtomp, there's no going back. From here you enter a wild battle, and the game starts to get confused. It remembers that the last Pokemon sent out was your Abra in slot 3, and it wants to send out the first non-fainted Pokemon available. Since the entire party is KO'd, it sends out the party slot that Abra occupied, which is now all zeros. The Pokemon that gets sent out is a question mark known as Species 0, and this is Emerald's attempt to deal with unexpected Pokemon information, rather than just crashing when it hits data that it doesn't recognize. If we enter the party, view Marshtomp's summary, and then back out, we can now scroll beyond the Pokemon in our party, and even beyond the usual 6 Pokemon limit, overflowing the Pokemon count. Doing this starts to corrupt data, and through prior research from Pokemon Tasters, we know that this data corruption will specifically target the Pokemon in Box 2, slot 24 of our PC. Afterwards, we back out of the party, attempt to run away, and the game finally notices that our entire party is fainted and gives us a wipe back out to the center. If you remember at the very beginning of the video, I stated that for Worcester to unlock the Evergrande Fly location, it was a 1 in 32 chance to happen. Well, that's the same case for this exploit as well. Due to choices made by the Emerald developers, the error correction is effectively random. It will attempt to corrupt one of the 32 possible bytes, and we need one specific byte to corrupt the Abra properly. The remaining 31 corruptions can make unusual changes to Abra, such as changing the marking on it, or with certain trainer IDs, it can corrupt Abra into a bad egg, forcing you to restart the whole corruption process from the save made earlier. But we don't want a bad egg. We want just a normal hatchable egg instead. There's no reasonable RTA way to control this corruption, so runners simply have a straight 1 in 32 chance of this glitch working out at the end. Luckily, the game won't fully heal your party after each wipeout for some reason, so as long as you don't get a bad egg, you can redo the corruption by repeating the entire process again, of entering a wild battle, checking Marshamp's summary, scrolling until data corrupts, then waiting back out at the center. But obviously this is a speedrun, so getting this sooner than later is necessary. Here's how it played out in my run.
Okay. So yeah, we use a Pomeg glitch, which knocks out Marshtomp and causes this like full glitch because we're oh my fucking god! Oh my fucking god! Oh my what the no way, no way, no way, no way, no way, no. No. There's no way. There's no way. There is no way. We're done. We're done. Day 4, we're done. We're finished. We're done. We're not beating that. We're not beating that. We're done.
Yeah, that's right. Somehow, despite everything that went wrong in this speedrun, I managed to get the 1 in 32 first try. If you weren't able to notice, hatching the egg we turn Abra into will play an animation of the corrupted Pokemon coming out. And it's this animation that activates a code written into the box names earlier. Code that simply tells the game, play the Hall of Fame cutscene. We're reminded of all our good Pokemon friends that helped us along the way. Marshtomp, Nincada, and who could forget about Pidgeotto? And yeah, that's pretty much it. Once the game fades to black, the timer ends and the run is over. Special thanks again to Raid for sponsoring today's video. Reminder that by using my link in the description and the code Monkey King, you can get access to 2 epic heroes, as well as a legendary Monkey King within 72 hours of signing up. Also special thanks to Amoeba, Tyrant14, and Merp for helping with this video. The information within would not have been nearly as accurate if not for all their help. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, as it's the best way to show support. Subscribe for more speedrunning related content, and as always, I hope you all have a beautiful life.